Well, that was a year. Every year we have the impetus to set goals and to make changes. And well, this past year, change has been forced upon all of us in different degrees and different ways. We have the opportunity now to make intentional, meaningful changes in our lives and in our businesses. This week, we're talking about 2021 and the notion of change. Stay tuned. Giving architects and landscape architects the tools and strategies to be seen, heard, and valued in the marketplace, and telling the stories of leaders building thriving design firms and attracting their ideal clients. This is From Architecture to Profitecture. I'm your host, Jay Krakowski. Let's get started. Fellow and future Profitex, hello, how are you? Welcome to this week's show. We're talking about change. Change in the new year. The new year is upon us, and hopefully you don't have any big party plans. There have been several here in my little town of Greenville, South Carolina that were apparently planned and were pretty quickly quashed due to public outcry. So hopefully you're hunkered down with your loved ones or a few friends to usher in the new year. I'm sure it will be very easy to change writing the date 2020. It usually isn't. It usually takes me a few weeks to stop writing the previous year before, but I think this year's a little different. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for 2021. So this week, I didn't want to go through a kind of your standard goal setting exercise that so many of us do. I actually don't get to mine until early January. I find that I need a little more of a quiet space. I'm actually it's New Year's Eve. I'm still in a little bit of crunch mode with client work. But spending time here with you on a Thursday afternoon or wherever in the world you are, if it's still Thursday, it might be a New Year. Happy New Year. Is super important. So I find that it's after the new year that I can really sit down and do my goal setting. But I think in looking back and thinking about just the ridiculous amount of change that happened this year, it really sets us up for a conversation on the bigger picture of what we can change, what we can change, not what the change that's forced upon us, but rather the intentional changes that we can put forth. So yeah, a lot of change this past year. How many of you foresaw the Zoom or the FaceTime site visit, or just Zoom in general? How many of you had stock in Zoom? I want to know. It's like 4x. It's ridiculous. Well, we want to talk stocks. Let's talk about setting our intentions for the new year. And I always start with looking back. Before I put any business goals or life goals or personal goals, health goals on paper, I've been doing a look back the last few years and writing it out on paper. Yes, good old fashioned pen and paper, or maybe a stylus on your iPad or your remarkable tablet. I see those popping up all over the place now. What changed for the better for you in 2020? There's so many things that felt like a monkey wrench, or that we had to put the brakes on everything certainly in our businesses, if not our lives. I have a insanely newfound respect for our teachers, and I always knew they were underpaid, but I didn't know to the extent they were underpaid. My children are 3 and 4. They are very busy boys, and wow, March and April were difficult. But at the same time, I got to understand them better. I also got to understand the value that is our education system, and that was a good change for me. I think efficiency in some of my business processes and changes for my business processes, that was for the better, as far as getting a little more automation into my back end systems. Now I have a long way to go. Those are goals for 2021, but again, that's another podcast. Those were good changes. So what changed about your business or the way you went about your day-to-day life that you think is better now, compared to maybe the old quote unquote autopilot that we may have been on the last few years? Just the way of doing business. It's the way that you've always done business, or the way you've always done things. What change that you see is better? I think those are important to write out. And again, we're not going through a goal setting exercise here, but what goals did you achieve in 2020? Look back at your goal setting for from 2019 or in the first quarter of 2020. Which ones can you check off? Celebrate those. Those are wins. Those are wins. If you could maintain any of those goals, and certainly for some, if you're selling digital products of any kind, you probably did better this year. You probably did. Or whether you're also doing some sort of coaching, whether that's brand building or personal branding or technical instruction, you probably did better because there's more of a need for that, for people to up their tech skills, their social media skills. Maybe they're just their business acumen in such a different environment. Maybe you're able to do better financially. But what goals did you achieve? Write those down and celebrate those, even in a small way. It's a latte somewhere, or it's a little gift for yourself. And I know we're just coming out of the holiday season, but really celebrate those goals in some way. Don't just sweep them under the rug. Don't let them be buried under the ones that we didn't get to achieve. I have a list of things that I just didn't get to this year, but that's okay. And along those lines, what are you rebooting? What goals are you bringing into the new year? And how have those changed? Or how would you change those goals now that we have a sense of how the world's going to operate, certainly for the next several months, if not half a year? How do those goals change, and what are you bringing? What are you rolling over? What are you rebooting for the new year? And so as you start to plan out your goals for the new year, we can start to talk about changes that you're going to make. Again, this could be life or business. I have an equal amount of both that I'm looking at this year, in terms of health, in terms of personal development and coaching, and then yes, in terms of my business processes and the goals that I want to hit. I've got kind of an equal list of things that I want to change on both sides. It's not all just about the work. At least I hope not. I hope not. So in terms of things you can change, what can you add, or what are you going to add in this year? What are you going to add to your plate? Are you looking to outsource or hire someone? That is on my list. That is probably on the top of my list. I'm a sole proprietor, have been for 5 years, and I'm tired. I'm tired of doing absolutely all of it. Now I have someone helping with the books, and I have contract help from time to time, but one of the goals for me for 2021 is to lean on others more. Start to build a team, even if it's a small team, even if it's a team of two, me and someone else. Is that something that you can add? Bringing another person into your business? Is it getting some sort of regular coaching? Again, whether that's in business or whether that's in terms of your physical health or just in life. Is there different tech or different systems or different equipment that you can bring in to make things easier for you? Something you've been putting off this past year. What can you add into the mix to make things run that much more smoothly next year? And then looking at the way that you're operating, again, business or in life, what can you improve? What can you keep in your business arsenal or in your routine, but make those better? What habits can you improve upon? Or rather, or another way to think of it is what habits can you leave behind so that you're improving your day-to-day or the way that you do business. Here's a big one. What can you delegate? And it kind of relates to the outsourcing or the hiring question here, but delegating should be a big part. If this past year showed us anything, it's that it's the norm now to delegate out virtually. We're not able to meet in person, certainly. You can't necessarily delegate out client meetings. At least I wouldn't. But the notion of and the ease of collaborating virtually, it's worlds different than it was 12 months ago. Think about that. Yes, I've been on Zoom meetings and the like for several years now with different online programs or live streaming or what have you. Granted, this podcast is just a year old, but what can you truly delegate? one of my mentors, James Wedmore, is more of a marketing entrepreneur. He takes the Pareto principle and he cranks up the dial. His is 95-5. The Pareto principle is 80-20. That 80% of your results come from 20% of the efforts. 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your clients. 80% of your headaches come from 20% of your clients, often. But in terms of business systems, business planning, he's got it at a 95-5. He operates at a real high level. He is most likely going to break the $10 million mark this year, or in 2021 rather. And his viewpoint is whittle down, focus on the 5% that only you can do. That's integral to your business or integral to your life. Again, only you can do the push-ups. You can get training, or you can read books, or you can buy videos or online programs, but you have to do the push-ups. But I digress. What's the 5% that only you can do in your design firm, and really focus on that, and take a good look at the other 95%. Do you really need to be doing those? Are you the best at doing those? Or is there someone that can do it? Another thing that he mentions, is there someone that can do it 70% as well as you can? I know that's hard to swallow, especially for us design professionals. When we get into detailing and getting the layout drawings right so that our work can be built, 70% can sound like utter failure. You wouldn't turn in a 70% CD set for permit and construction. But in a lot of the work we do, sometimes that's good enough, and you can teach the rest. You can teach them to amp that up to 75, 80, 85%. But if you can find someone that can start at that competency level, get it off your plate. And yes, I know finances can be an issue, but there are ways to find work at different rates. Again, thinking virtually, think globally, really, if you can. There are sites and I know a lot of folks poo-poo Upwork or Fiverr or onlinejobs.ph, but these are all resources. These are people that can help you in whatever goal, and it might be temporary. You might only have them on for a quarter or half a year, and that's fine, just to get things going, just to get yourself comfortable with outsourcing virtually from someone that you can't drive 5 minutes and meet outside of Starbucks and handshake or a elbow bump, as it were, these days, behind a mask. But get yourself used to that delegating virtually, and that's going to be a big push of mine, and that's been a source of discomfort for me, is letting go of that control. And again, I know it's hard, especially when we get into detail sheets and all that. Having such control, really, those that can let go of at least a little bit of control are the ones that are really set up for success. So what can you delegate in the coming year to make your business go further and go faster, for that matter? And finally, what can you delete in 2021? What are the things that you have been doing? It may be a service of your business that you're willing to let go of, or just put on hold. Try it for a quarter, try it for 90 days, try it for 180 days, and see what happens in your business. Or is there an outsourced contractor that's not working out for you? Is there a hire that's not working out for you? I know that's not a fun conversation to have, but or are there ways that you are delivering your services and your deliverables that you can change or you can get rid of? Maybe you're doing too much. Maybe you're providing too many deliverables to get the point across in certain phases. I know that doesn't necessarily hold true for construction documentation, but in your earlier phases, are there things you can change and still get the same outcome at the end of the day? Or are there long-winded processes in your business that you can look at, whittling down, honing in? Are there parts of that you can delete because they don't necessarily affect the bottom line all that much, but they give you, how much headache are they giving you, and can you get rid of those? So what are the things you can delete in 2021? So those are the four big questions that I have asked myself in recent years, and I'm going to ask myself again as I sit after the new year, after things start to simmer down a little bit, at least with holidays and having kids home more than more than usual. Mine are obviously still in daycare, but what can you add? What can you improve? What can you delegate? And what can you delete? Those are the four big questions to go ahead and ask yourself as we start to think about the new year, which in my case is less than 9 hours away here on the East Coast in South Carolina, in the U.S. What things can we intentionally and meaningfully change in our lives and in our businesses so that 2021 is even more of a success? So I'd love to hear your comments on what you're changing with, intermittent quarantining and those fun COVID tests. Those are so much fun. Anyone else have one of those? Lots of things have had to change. So, but there are intentional changes that we can make as sole proprietors to automate. That's going to be automate and outsource. And I don't mean in a completely robotic way, but even if it's small things, even if it's with your contracts or with your correspondence, can follow-up emails be automated and scheduled if a contract isn't signed or if an invoice isn't paid? Saving these minutes and these hours, think about it over the course of the whole next year, it all adds up. So I do want to leave you with a quote. I've kind of started to do this at the end of every episode along the lines of change, especially if you're still feeling hesitant or with the new year, the idea of wholesale changes, gives you a little pause or you hesitate a little bit. But I think this is a great quote from another mentor of mine, Jim Fortin, who learned it from his brother-in-law, who's actually a shaman, a Mexican shaman, believe it or not. And I won't put it on the screen because it's a long quote. It's going to fill up the whole darn screen. And I'll say it twice because it's kind of a mouthful. To change the world, I must change myself. To change myself, I must stop my world. When I stop my world, I can change myself. Then when I change myself, I can change the world. It's kind of an expansion on that quote. There's a quote from Gandhi, similarly along the lines, to change the world, change yourself. But what's so great about this time of every year, is that there's such a push for all of us to just take a breath, take a pause, and stop and think. Now, it's not that you can't do this quarterly or mid-year, but the end of the year, it seems to always be the time when everyone pushes to reflect and pause. So to change the world, I must change myself. To change myself, I must stop my world. That's, especially if as a sole proprietor, stopping our world, that's taking pause. It's tough, especially when you're on your own or you have a very small crew in your firm, to stop and take a look at all your processes and all the ways that you interact, how you interact with clients and the services you bring to them. And then, all the stuff on the life and health side too. To take a pause is sometimes tough for us, but it's really important to look inward and look at the inner workings of your business too, so that you can make meaningful change, not just be changing things on the fly, not just be changing things when they go wrong, although you should certainly make note of that, but be intentional about your 2021 and the things you add or improve or delegate or delete from your life. So all that said, I want to wish you a very happy new year, wherever you're tuning in from or catching on the replay. It's already the new year. And until next week, go ahead and make it a great week, because our success is inevitable. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you stay up to date with future episodes. Connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn at Jake Krakowski. And for show notes and much more, visit profitecturebydesign.com/podcast.